The faint noises below suddenly became much louder, as if she was standing among them. "Where is he?" one of the figures asked. They were hard to make out in the dim light, but this one looked darker than the rest, possibly a Dunmer. "He'll be here," another said. He, or maybe she, was obviously a Khajiit. Everything about the way he moved was feline. "He will," a third voice said. Anaig watched as the man she had been following for the last few days approached the others. Like them, he was too far away to see, but she knew him by the hump of his back, and her memory filled in the details of his brutish face and long, unkempt hair. "Do you have it?" the Khajiit asked. "Just brought it in, under the river." "Seems like a lot of trouble," the Khajiit said. "I've always wondered why you don't use an Argonian for that. I don't trust them. Besides, they have ripper eels trained to hunt Argonians trying to cross the outer canal. They're not so good at spotting me, especially if I rub myself with eel slime first. Disgusting. You can keep your end of the job. Just as long as I get paid for it." He pulled off his shirt and removed his hump. "Have a look. Have a taste, if you want." "Oh, Daedra and Divines," Anaig swore, from the beam they crouched on. "He's not a Werkrark. He's a skooma smuggler." "You're finally going to kill me," Glim said. "Not so much kill you as get you killed. It works out the same." And now Anaig was quite sure that what she felt was fear. Bright, terrible, animal fear. "By the way," the Khajiit below said, lowering his voice. "Who are those two in the rafters?" The man looked up. "Exharth." "If I know," he said. "None of mine." "I hope not. I sent Patch and Flitches up to kill them." "Oh, Kaok," Anaig hissed. "Come on, Glim." As she stood, something whisked through the air near her, and a shriek tore out of her throat. "I knew it," Glim snapped. "Just, come on, we have to get to the roof."
They ran across the beams, and someone behind her shouted. She could hear their footfalls now. Why hadn't she before? An enchantment of some sort. "There," Glim said. She saw it. Part of the roof had caved in and was resting on the rafters, forming a ramp. They scrambled up it. Something hot and wet was trying to pull out of her chest, and she hysterically wondered if an arrow hadn't hit her, if she wasn't bleeding inside. But they made it to the roof. And a 50-foot fall. She pulled out 2 vials and handed one to Niglim. "Drink this and jump," she said. "What? What is it?" I'm not sure. It's supposed to make us fly." "Supposed to? Where did you get it? Why is that important?" "Oh, Val, you made it, didn't you? Without a formula. Remember that stuff that was supposed to make me invisible? It made you sort of invisible. It made my skin translucent. I looked like a bag of offal walking around." She drank hers. "No time, Glim. It's our only hope." Their pursuers were coming up the ramp, so she jumped, wondering if she should flap her arms or... But what she did was fall, and shriek. But then she wasn't falling so fast, and then she was sort of drifting, so the wind actually pushed her like a soap bubble. She heard the men hollering from the roof, and turned to see Glim floating just behind her. "See," she said. "You need to have a little faith in me." She barely got the sentence out before they were falling again. Later, battered, sore, and stinking of the trash pile that broke their final fall, they returned to her father's villa. They found him passed out in the same chair Anaig had been in earlier that morning. She stood looking at him for a moment, at his pale fingers clutched on a wine bottle, at his thinning gray hair. She was trying to remember the man he had been before her mother died, before the Inzilio arrested Lomoth from the Empire and looted their estates. She couldn't see him. "Come on," she told Glim. They took 3 3 bottles of wine from the cellar and made their way up the spiral stair to the upper balcony. She lit a small paper lantern and in its light poured full 2 delicate crystal goblets. To us, she said. They drank. Old imperial wilmoths spread below them, crumbling hulks of villas festooned with vines and grounds overgrown with sleeping palms and bamboo, all dark now as if cut from black velvet, except where illumined by the pale phosphorescences of broken mold or the wispy yellow airborne shines, harmless cousins of the deadly willow, wisps in the deep swamps. There now, she said, refilling her glass. Don't you feel more alive? He blinked his eyes, very slowly. Well, I certainly feel more aware of the contrast between life and death, he replied.
That's a start, she said. A small moment passed. We were lucky, Glim said. I know, she replied. But what? Well, it's no work rock, but we can at least report the skooma dealers to the underwater. They will have moved by then. And even if they catch them, that's a drop of water in the ocean. There's no stopping the skooma trade. There certainly isn't if no one tries, she replied. No offense, Glim, but I wish we were still in the Empire. No doubt. Then your father would still be a wealthy man, and not a poorly paid advisor to the Anzalian. It's not that, she said. It's just that there was justice under the Empire. There was honor. You weren't even born. Yes, but I can read, mere Glim. But who wrote those books? Bretons. Imperials. And that's Anzaleo propaganda. The Empire is rebuilding itself. Titus Smith started it, and now his son Atrebus is at his side. They're bringing order back to the world, and we're just dreaming ourselves away here, waiting for things to get better by themselves.
The Argonian gave his imitation shrug. There are worse places than Lilmoth. There are better places, too. Places we could go, places where we could make a difference. Is this your Imperial City speech again? I like it here, and it's my home. We've known each other since we were hatchlings, yes, and if you didn't already know, you could talk me into almost anything, you do now. But leaving Black Marsh, that you won't get me to do. Don't even try. Don't you want more out of life, Glim? Food, drink, good times, why should anyone want more than that? It's people wanting to make a difference, causing all the troubles in the world. People who think they know what's better for everyone else, people who believe they know what other people need but never bother to ask. That's what your Titus Mead is spreading around, his version of how things ought to be, right? There is such a thing as right and wrong, Glim. Good and evil. If you say so. Prince Atrebus rescued an entire colony of your people from slavery. How do you think they feel about the Empire? My people knew slavery under the old Empire. We knew it pretty well. Yes, but that was ending when the Oblivion Crisis happened. Look, even you have to admit that if Maroon's Dagon had won, if Martin hadn't beaten him, Martin and the Empire didn't beat him in Black Marsh, Glim said, his voice rising. The Enzileel did. When the gates opened, Argonians poured into Oblivion with such fury and might, Dagon's lieutenants had to close them.
Aneg realized that she was leaning away from her friend and that her pulse had picked up. She smelled something sharp and faintly sulphurous. Amazed, she regarded him for a moment. Yes, she finally said, when the scent diminished, but without Martin's sacrifice, Dagon would have eventually taken Black Marsh, too, and made this world his sport ground. Glim shifted and held out his glass to be refilled. I don't want to argue about this, he said. I don't see that it's important. You sounded as if you thought so for a second there, old friend. I thought I had a little passion in your voice. And you smelled like you were spoiling for a fight. It's just the wine, he muttered, waving it off. And all of the excitement. For the rest of the night, can we just celebrate that your flying potion wasn't a complete failure? She was starting to feel warm in her belly, the wine at its business. Well, yes, she said. I suppose that's worth a toast or two. They drank those, and then Glim looked a little sideways at her. Anyway, he began, then stopped. What? He grinned his lizard grin and shook his head. You may not have to go looking for trouble. From what I heard, it might be coming for us. What's this? The Wind Oracle put into port today. Your cousin Ixtanasha's boat. Yeah, says he saw something out on the deep, something coming this way. Something? That's the crazy part. He said it looked like an island with a city on it. An uncharted island. An unmoored island. Floating in the air. Flying. Aneg frowned, set her glass down and wagged a finger at him. That's not funny, Glim. You're teasing me. No, I wasn't going to tell you. But the wine. She sat up straighter in her chair. You're serious? Coming this way? Swat, he said. Ha, she replied, taking up the wine again and sinking back into her chair. I'll have to think about that. A flying city. Sounds like something left over from the Marithic era. Or before. She felt her ample mouth pull in a huge smile. Exciting. I'd better go see Hekua tomorrow. And so they finished that bottle and opened another, an expensive one, and outside the rains came, as they always did, a moving curtain, glittering in the lamplight, clean and wet, washing away, for the moment, Lilmetha's scent of mildew and decay.